Hello, everyone, and welcome back to either the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel or welcome back to the MyFootballWriter Spotify account, whichever way you are choosing to listen or watch the newest episode of the MFW Podcast, episode 21. I'm Freddie Humphrey Wakefield. I'm joined by Henry Miller, and you may see, if you're watching on YouTube, a blank screen to my right-hand side with an empty chair. Jack Wright is back, ladies and gentlemen. He's back. Look at him, suitcase. He's dancing. He's got his sunglasses on and his bucket hat. No, Jack, you seem very joyous considering we've not won in 6, and you missed all of them. But
what?
Anyway, we haven't won a game in 6, mate.
What?
And
I haven't watched a single game over the last 3 weeks.
No, we lost at home as well. We might have lost at Carrow Road to Bristol City.
When did that happen?
That happened on Saturday. Also, Kenny got sent off, and he's not back playing yet because he had a word with the ref, and it wasn't a nice one. What else happened? We had a really good game with Middlesbrough. That was good. That was quite good. George Long saved a penalty. That's the only thing he saved in 6 matches, though.
No.
And he's still playing. Archie Mair's still on the bench, but that doesn't matter. If you watch, we won't bother with that because it's international break again, which is fun. Yeah, that's very good. But anyway, before we dive into probably far too much nonsense for any of our, apart from Jack, me and Henry's liking, regardless. But first things first, Henry, Jack, the pair of you, how have you been over? Well, for you, Jack, the last couple of weeks, and Henry, for you, it's only been a week since I last saw you. But anyway, what's been going on in both of your lives over the last however long time period?
Well, with me, it's always the usual, just working really. But other than that, when I have had time to relax, I've decorated my spare room finally, which is good. And just got depressed about Norwich. So good fun.
Yeah. I mean, I am kidding, of course. I did follow all of the matches as I could. I missed 6 matches over 3 weeks. That was played 6, 1-0, drew 3, and lost 3. On the back of what was a very promising run, including a 4-0 win against Hull at home. Everything seemed to click. Everything seemed to be working fantastically. And then Norwich City decided to ruin my honeymoon. I'm kidding. It didn't ruin the honeymoon. The honeymoon was fantastic. But it turns out Americans have no idea who Josh Sargent is. Like, their star man, literally Captain America, all they could talk about was the Dodgers winning the World Series. Like, no one watches baseball. It's just like a more rubbish version of cricket. Like, if there are any Americans listening and you're offended by me not liking baseball, it's a good thing our owners have no interest in baseball at all. But the Milwaukee Brewers are my favorite.
I've always loved them. Always loved Milwaukee and Brewers. You know, I like brew and tea. Yeah. But
my favorite baseball player is Matt from Wii Sports. He could just do anything, like literally bowling, boxing, you name it. Matt can do it.
He was phenomenal. He was the greatest of all time in every single department of sport. Nothing ever beat Matt.
He is the GOAT.
No, he is. He's undisputed. The single-handedly greatest of all time. Babe Ruth, a proper legend of baseball, got nothing on Matt from Wii Sports. But anyhow, before we delve into baseball and what else do they play out there? Ice hockey. I think they play that sometimes. That's good fun. But no,
basketball.
Yeah, basketball,
but not proper football. Trying to explain to Americans that I like football. They were just like, "Oh, so you like the Rams?" Like, no. Again, just a ludicrous version of rugby. Just play rugby and cricket like normal countries.
No, exactly. Don't worry. Rugby is effectively American football anyway, just minus the shoulder pads and helmets and jock straps. But anyway, moving on quickly, we'll go on to just not been a very good week overall for Norwich in any regard. The academy lost to Bromley in the Premier League Cup thing that they do. They were 2-0 up. They lost 3-2 and they conceded in the last minute. The under-18s lost. The men's first team lost, and the women's first team, for the first time since the last game rather of last season, they also lost. So it's just pure loss everywhere in Norwich, as Jack puts an L to his forehead, and it's very much that is what's going on in Norwich City's perspective. But for the women's side of things, Henry, you are the expert on MFW regarding that. What went wrong? Because that team doesn't lose very, very frequently. Only their second loss in almost a season and a quarter. So just what happened there? Because losing for them is completely unfamiliar, especially in league games.
Yeah, I just think it was a frustrating one. From all the stats, Norwich dominated the game. So they should have at least got a draw. But the fact that they've come away from that with no points is shocking, really, especially as they played Actonians a couple of weeks ago in the National League play at the Nest and won. That was almost seen as a dress rehearsal for the league fixture at the time, and then for Actonians to come to the Nest and win is a massive shock. And they're now top and we're fourth. So that result has done real damage in a league where the margins are already really fine to get out. You need to be near perfect to achieve promotion from that league. So yeah, I think in terms of the women's team, Andy Cook, he's our first ever full-time manager, but I think he's already under pressure. He came to Norwich with big pedigree, and the only thing that would have been asked for him this season is to deliver promotion. And the form we're in at the minute, I don't think we've won in, I think it's 5 league games now. We've had 4 draws and a defeat. So, it's not good enough, and we need to be top in that league. So he's a man under pressure, and time will tell as to whether he will turn it around or not. Hopefully he does, because I've interviewed him before. I really like Andy Cook, but yeah, time will tell. But we need results, and we need it fast.
No, big time, and that applies to any team regarding Norwich City. So at the moment, you have their women haven't won in 5 games, as you've just said. Men's first team haven't won in 6. It really is just going through quite a bit of a rough patch at the moment, and especially the men's first team with 9 or 10 first team injuries, and they're all massive. And there's still doubts after the international break if our big players are going to be okay. We know that Josh Sargent will not be playing again this year. We will have to wait until January to have our main striker up front. There's been maybe some talks about if Norwich need to look in the free agent market in terms of some forwards. But again, there's not that many good ones left there, apart from maybe the one name that springs to my head, that the only one I recognise when after Connor Southwell, he put out a list on X of free agents. The only one I recognised was, and the FIFA players will love this, was Wissam Ben Yedder, but he's been done for quite serious crimes, so I don't think he'll be playing football anytime soon.
Well, he will go to Marseille, won't he? He'll go to Marseille, won't he? So
yeah, probably. Yeah, most likely. De Zerbi will snap him up.
And it's not like us to sign a striker with questionable run-ins with the law. Now, I'm not legally obliged to go any further on this, but you know. Yeah, he knows as well. Anyway, let's record this podcast.
Well, anyway, no, we'll move on. But keeping on that sort of track of injuries, really, as that is mainly down. Well, you could argue it's mainly down to why Norwich haven't won in 6 games. They don't have their best midfielder. They don't have their best striker. They certainly don't have their best goalkeeper. and even just in depth, really, really troublesome. And the squad is looking very thin at the moment, and that is ultimately being exposed. But in terms of that long injury list, who do you feel who's the biggest one? Because they all, in their own regard, are massive losses. But overall, who do you think has been the one in which has made it the worst this run? Who's the one player that you feel, if only they were here and maybe we could have ended up okay?
I think ironically for Norwich, it's the one player who's out who isn't injured. I think the linchpin is been Kenny McLean, and the fact that we lost him has been massive. You look at the last game when Anis Ben Slimani came in, he clearly didn't look fit. Obviously, he didn't play against Cardiff, I don't think, or Sheffield Wednesday. He definitely missed the Sheffield Wednesday game. And yeah, it looked like he was rushed back to have that sort of nitty-gritty midfielder available. But in reality, no one could do Kenny McLean's role. And I think we definitely would have created more chances against Bristol City had he have been in the team. And Kenny McLean's one of those players who, it's ironic saying this, seeing as he is our player of the season, but he's one of those players who won't get the plaudits and will go under the radar. And then when he doesn't play, you realise just what you're missing, and then it suddenly dawns on you just how good Kenny McLean is. So I think he's been the one who we've really struggled to replace since he's been absent.
That was going to be my answer as well, really. I just think that midfield is just unconvincing. Poor Lungi, he's sort of been a bit part player here, there, and everywhere for years now. When we've actually relied on him as being one of the few fit players, which is hilarious, really. I mean, his next injury probably isn't far away, bless him. Yeah, he's just not been up to scratch. And I think having Marcondes and Schwartau kind of in that midfield, we've just looked quite paper thin. And I know, Freddie, you desperately want to sell Kenny McLean, but I think this absent period of him not being in the center of the park is, really, really telling. Obviously, Gunny not being in goal and having George Long, I will not be, not respectful. Well, okay. George Long, bless you. You're probably a lovely man, but I've said it once, I've said it before. You're not a championship goalkeeper. You're barely a League One goalkeeper. I think you do all right in League Two. And no, I'm afraid people have had negative opinions of him before this little run in the team, and his critics have kind of come out and been like, oh no, well, this is his chance to prove that, he is actually worth the extra 3-year contract. And he's, as Will likes to point out, keeps on getting exposed at his near post. Keeps on just being weirdly positioned for a goalkeeper, just never really kind of on his line, just kind of floundering in the box. I really think Gunny coming back will be huge. I can't wait for Kenny to come back into the midfield. Hopefully he doesn't swear at any more referees. And hopefully there's no more swearing in this podcast, like you were doing the other podcast, Henry, you naughty potty mouth boy. Yeah, I watched. But can't wait to have Kenny back.
I think as well, sort of bouncing on that point, I think if you put Josh Sargent in for Antti Sinat, or even Emi Marcondes when he played in the false 9 against Bristol City, and you just had Josh Sargent fit and available again, we still lose that game. It's the same with Angus Gunn. If you put Angus Gunn in for George Long, we still lose that game. Whereas I think if you put Kenny McLean in that team and you can get the passes and you can get the distribution better, up to the attacking line, then maybe would have got a draw or even more, because I think it was a case of Norwich were that bad. I didn't think Bristol City looked great at all. I know they're quite high in the league in terms of stats for winning the ball back in the final third, so they do love to press teams in dangerous positions. But I think on the whole, Bristol City, it was just a run-of-the-mill performance from them. And I think Kenny McLean really would have helped change that result if he was on the pitch. Whereas I think Sargent, without creativity, has the tendency to potentially go missing if he's not getting the service. And I feel like Angus Gunn is a really good goalkeeper, but sometimes as a goalkeeper, it is a cliche that you're only as good as the defence that's in front of you. And I think those goals that George Long conceded, I think Angus Gunn definitely would have conceded the first goal as well. The second goal, I'm not too sure about, but I think McLean is the big one. But I think either of those two back in there, and the results still would have been the same. Norwich were that bad.
Yeah, no, they were pretty bad. They were bad across all 6 games, and that's why they didn't win. That's the problem, especially that. Well, you mentioned the Sheffield Wednesday match within there, and that was a game, of course, Norwich ended up losing. They fell to a 2-0 defeat, but that one came out after the game. Danny Roll, their manager, or as the Sheffield United fans like to call him, Sausage Roll, if anyone had seen that, but. He said in his post-match press conference, he studied Johannes Oftor upside, and ultimately he was able to outsmart it, hence the scoreline. Norwich didn't get a goal, and they were really, really poor. By all accounts, it was branded as a very dire display. But is this side maybe becoming predictable now? Is there that element of maybe now that they have been studied, and clearly if you study it, you will probably end up all right if you're following the mindset of Danny Roll and you do what he did. Maybe is this team easy to play against? Of course, with injuries, it probably is a lot easier because there's players in there who haven't had as many first team minutes and they are still very raw to this division. Of course, Sorensen has barely played over the last year. Svartau is 18 years old and was even said by his own manager he was brought in more for next season, and he's had to use him already. You have, as mentioned, Slimane's only just got back in and wasn't looking fit. Marcondes has not even played about 200 or 300 minutes of football in the last year and was being utilised as a false 9. In a baffling decision, in my viewpoint. I would rather have played a natural striker who was playing out on the right side, but we'll get on to Mr. Cianats in a second. But is this team becoming a little bit predictable now, and have they been found out maybe this early on into the season?
I wouldn't say they've been found out. No, I think how Norwich play is known to the teams in the league, but it's incredibly hard to defend against when you've got both Sargent and Borja Sainz. Because if you look at the Bristol City game, 3 players surrounded Borja Sainz to effectively just nullify any sort of attack we had. Would they do that if Josh Sargent was on the pitch? No, of course they wouldn't, because they're not going to allow a striker as predatory as him in this division to have that much space and link up well with Sainz and with the other attackers. So I think in terms of when we're all fully fit, we are a dangerous side going forward, and we're incredibly hard to play against. This side now that is depleted and has barely any squad depth at the minute is getting slightly easier to play against, because as you said, Freddie, you've got experience such as Svartau, who has barely played, and is very much a sign-in for next season. You've got Marcondes playing out of position, playing in a position that doesn't work for Norwich, didn't work for Norwich. We look like we've run out of ideas because we're playing players in positions they're not used to, and who probably are playing more minutes than what they expect to play. So I think that's the only issue. And I think once we're back to a full strength side, we can sort of properly have a go at it. I think one stat that stood out to me at the weekend was that heading into our remembrance weekend fixtures last season, we were 17th in the Championship under David Wagner, who I think all Norwich fans accept play a weaker style of football to Johannes Hoftorp, and he got us into the playoffs. So it still shows that it's early days and that anything can happen.
Yeah, I think in terms of Danny Röhl doing his homework, I don't want to quote Roy Keane, but that is his job, is to tactically look at who he's going to play and try and figure out ways to outsmart them. I think what really stung me about the Sheffield Wednesday result, just in terms of how kind of comfortably they won, was the fact that it came after a 6-2 drubbing by Watford, and then a loss in the Steel City derby. Obviously, Sheffield United are a much superior team, but Wednesday just looked miles better than Norwich from start to finish. I mean, early goals completely knocked the stuffing out of us. You mentioned our dear friend Mr. Wagner there, Henry. Over the course of the fixtures that we played in the last 6, last season, David Wagner's Norwich accrued 11 points compared to Johannes Hoftorp's 3 points. Now, that's not me saying that David Wagner is a superior manager to Johannes. What it indicates to me is that we haven't come across any giants, any huge teams in this run. No offense to the rest of the Championship. These are all fixtures that we've played that we expected to get results, and Dave Wagner managed it. Obviously had talented players like Gabriel Sara and Jonathan Rowe, which we don't have. Whether when we have the full strength team, if we would have managed to actually get a result, I don't know, probably. But I mean, in terms of the tactical setup, it's very difficult to imprint exactly what you want when you're working with not even half the team that you want, even like a quarter of the team that you want. It's like when you go to cook a pasta, but you don't have any mince or any sauce or any pasta. So you just have, a slice of toast. That analogy doesn't really make sense, but do you kind of get what I mean? Like, it's not a very nice spaghetti bolognese if it's, covered in crumbs and got jam on it. But, we're going to go to Morrison's and we're going to get some pasta and we're going to get some sauce, and then we'll be cooking.
Oh, God.
To be fair, bread and butter is my favourite pasta, so you smash that one.
How have we compared this team to a spaghetti bolognese and a slice of toast? How have we done it?
Like that. Yeah.
How have we done it? We've gone from Sam Seaman giving really in-depth analysis to
Lads, I'm back. Who missed me? In the comments, who missed me?
It's the MFW podcast, and it's absolutely ridiculous. That's what it is. But hey ho, we move on. We move on. What were we talking about? Bread and bolognese. Yeah, I love bolognese. Really nice. Domino day, whatever the advert used to say when I was about 10. But we'll move on. We'll quickly move on. Speaking of the Championship and its sort of table and whatnot, Norwich are only 3 points off the drop zone, but this table is actually very close. I believe I want to say it's only 5 or 6 that separate about 4th and 20th. So it's ludicrous. The Championship always is. It's a very tightly compacted league this time of year. But Norwich near the bottom of it, and ultimately they shouldn't be anywhere near that. But as we've already alluded to, injuries have occurred and players haven't played much football, and it's taking its toll. It's been a very difficult period and a lot of games that have happened as well. And it doesn't help that, albeit this international break is very welcomed, on the other side of this, you have the hectic Christmas schedule where there's that week of from like 2 days before Christmas to New Year's Day where you've got to play 3 or 4 matches somehow. Great from whoever decided that. That was really, really clever of you. But no, there's that really difficult period where Norwich probably, I'd be amazed if they came out of it unscathed, albeit this may be the pessimist and me being a bit reactionary due to what's happened over the last 3 weeks. But it will be another period of there will be a lot of football to be played. And I was speaking with a friend of mine who's a Sunderland fan just I think 2 days ago, and he said that period is where you separate the best from the good. That's where you can really tell who's going to be up there. And if you can grind out results then, you are more than likely going to be up there and prove that you belong to be at the top end of this division. Now, Norwich will most likely, they will have a lot of their players back, bar Josh Sargent, unless he recovers a bit quicker than expected. But it seems as if that will probably be the case, where after this, Norwich have got some tough periods and a lot of sort of 3-game weeks. But where do you think that? How can they fare in that? They'll have players back, but is that going to be enough to boost morale that bit higher and get them more points? Or even if players come back, are they just in a bit of a rut and they could just be in dire straits and they need something a bit more than that to really sort of give them that boost to get results and try to grind them out?
I think that Norwich will take a lot of confidence, knowing that players are going to come back. Obviously, Kenny McLean's still got one match to go, and then he's back and hopefully injury free, providing he stays off any awful challenges for Scotland, and then I'll be amazed if Angus Gunn doesn't play against West Brom. He said on BBC Radio Norfolk a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, that he aims to be back for the West Brom game. But you're looking at definitely after that, he should be the number one then. So I think we'll be in a much better position come Christmas. We just need to sort of take confidence from that, and I think we will do. Going back to Jack's analogy about the toast, these fixtures coming up are our bread and butter. They really are. We've got Luton, who are in awful form. We've got West Brom, who, albeit I think they're still in the playoffs, but they're actually, in terms of their run of form, they're actually in similar form to us. I think they've got 1 win in 9 or something, and we've got 1 win in 8 or something ridiculous like that. And then we've got Portsmouth coming up, who look dross. We've got Plymouth coming up, who look dross. QPR, who are bottom of the league. So these are all winnable games, and these are the bread and butter games. So we have to get points on the board. So with players back, and with McLean back, and with Gunn back, I am confident that we can get over the line in these games.
Bookmark it.
Yeah. No, already got it. Don't you worry, Henry. I've got that. Comments of dross already sort of up here. I mean, we have still got to play Burnley and Sunderland at some point before Christmas, I think. So they're pretty kind of tough ones. I kind of feel like with this injury crisis, the logic kind of in our heads is that at some point, all of the players are going to come back and be fit forever, and everything will be fine, as if we won't ever get any more injuries and are clearly an already very injury-prone team. I don't want to be that pessimist. But I think us kind of holding out for hope that something will get better. I mean, it surely has to get better. This form will see us plummet down the table. But I seem to remember Reading in, I want to say, 2012-13. In November, they were about 16th or 17th in the league. Reading fans, if you're listening, you probably aren't. You're probably too busy watching League One football over the international break. Quote me on this, but yeah, they were like 15th or 16th in the league, and then they finished second. That was like Adam Lafondra peak. So there's still some hope. Obviously, like we've alluded to, getting Kenny back will be huge. Getting Marcelino back will be huge. Getting Angus back will be absolutely huge. But I mean, it's one of those things where over the sort of last 6 games, I was sort of thinking to myself just how predictably Norwich this season has turned out. I mean, this tends to happen around autumn. I don't know why this is something that perpetually happens. But this sort of run of poor form was, the very reason as to why Stuart Webber was not hounded out of the club, but essentially put in his place. It's essentially, the tombstone in which David Wagner was carved, regardless of the fantastic form towards the second half. Everyone will remember the terrible autumn that will ultimately stain his Norwich career. And it's reflective of the fans' frustrations that we've had with Delia and the finances for years now. Obviously, Torup has said that there is pretty much no money in January, which, when have we heard that before? Literally every January. Apart from that time that we bought Tim Closer and Stephen Naismith, and that worked out fantastically for us. But yeah, even though it's a new sporting director, a new owner, and a new manager, we can't shake off the Norwichness. I don't know why we're so weirdly twinned with Tottenham, but why, as clubs, they're obviously not that cursed because they're in Europe, so they can be quiet about being cursed. We are, like you said, 3 points away from the relegation zone. If we keep up this form, which, I think we all pretty much predicted that we wouldn't win against Bristol City. We all thought that we would struggle. And as if to kind of think, oh, it's fine, we'll just get better results and we'll just improve and everything will be better. We need to see something significantly change. I mean, when I look at the Bristol City lineup and I see Mehmeti and Nahki Wells, I think to myself, right, former Norwich player, bang on to score. Nahki Wells, cart horse championship striker, bound to score. And lo and behold, that's what happened. And yeah, for some reason, we've gone from being a free scoring team with, a fairly decent defense to seemingly not being able to find the net at all and being very defensively open. Over the last 6 games, the only players to score that weren't Borja signs was Shane Duffy, Seni Dieng, own goal, and Cernats. Apart from that, those are the only 3 other players to have scored for Norwich in 6 games other than Borja. That's frightening. That's bad. Is it reflective of perhaps a struggling striker, Freddie?
Maybe. Just maybe. No, well, you want to talk about struggling strikers. It's time to jump aboard the Cernats train, ladies and gentlemen. I may not be his biggest fan. I wasn't to start off with. He scored against Stoke. Then I thought, you know what? Fair enough. Fair enough. Maybe I've been too critical. He's scored now. We move. He'll score more. He hasn't. He hasn't. And what's worse is when you are again being shoehorned out wide for Marcondes. Again, I will reiterate my earlier point. Probably hasn't even played 300 minutes of football in the last, 6 months. He is being preferred as a forward, a central striker option, albeit false nine and all this modern day football positions and whatnot. But when you are a natural striker, that is your best position. That is what you've played in the Polish division and the Croatian youth team. You're probably going to end up a Croatian national team footballer if you keep on being all right. But when you are being put at right wing for a player who has not played barely any football whatsoever, and you are being told, no, I prefer him as a forward to you, and you're a striker, that's got to kill your confidence. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe because of him being shoehorned and it hasn't worked for him as a central option. Maybe his confidence and his mental well-being, maybe it's not all there at the minute. I wouldn't blame him if it wasn't, because he's ultimately had public criticism. Again, I won't hide away and pretend that I didn't give him criticism. I did. And maybe at this rate, I say it's hard to not give criticism. It's unfair to give it. But when he is one of our most expensive signings in our history, we spent, nearly £9 million on Sienat, 20 years old, completely unproven and untried in a hard division. Again, that's a case for, yes, it's difficult. He's a young lad, a new country, a new league, a new manager. There's so much for him to adapt to. But on the other hand, when you have spent that much money, it is so difficult to not expect something. £9 million is a lot of money for a club like Norwich of that financial standpoint. That is a lot. I think he ranks maybe 4th or 5th. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's up there in most expensive signings. And he has one goal to show for it. And I can't maybe be too critical because it is unfair. But one goal from a player who costs so much, surely it's somewhat fair to expect a bit more than one goal. And again, maybe I'm being far too harsh. As already said, young, untried, and everything along those lines. I get it. But one goal from a near £10 million signing, I mean, you may agree with me, you may disagree. We're all entitled to our own opinions. That's the joy of football and why we do this, because we want to share opinions and see what people have to say. But £9 million, one goal, surely Norwich should be looking at free agent market. He's the only natural striker option we have. Sargent and Barnes are crocked at the minute. They're not going to come back anytime soon, it seems. Norwich, should look for that, even just maybe to provide competition. Sign a 37-year-old, what's his name, Caputo from the Serie A. Do whatever you want. Because it could make Sienat's a better player. He might think, bloody hell, this is how not well it's going for me. I need to prove these guys wrong, prove my doubters wrong, and I will kick on. I think maybe that can help him. Maybe it won't. I'm not him. I don't know how his brain is working and what his thought processes are on a daily basis, but maybe we should look to do that. And it's funny, actually, Jack, you brought up January budgets. The Norwich AGM meeting was today, and it was reported by Chris Gorham about 15 minutes before we started recording this that Mark Catanasio has said that Norwich have got money if they want to spend it in January, but they will have to apply to profit and sustainability rules. And also they've got to make sure that it fits their transfer policy. Now, of course, again, we don't know what the policy is at the moment. Henry said to me before we started, it's obscure players from obscure nations and obscure leagues. So maybe Norwich will sign another player from the Bulgarian First Division. Maybe they'll sign another player from the Danish league. But the pair of you, Ante Sienats, what do you think is the right decision? What do you think maybe, will he stay in this team and be that main man, or should Norwich look to just try and get someone to provide a bit more competition?
I think with Sienats, there's no there's no hiding the fact that he hasn't adjusted to life in Norfolk that well. I think, like you said there, his goal output in terms of his transfer fee, it doesn't correlate. And yes, Sienats has to maybe take some responsibility for that. But actually against Bristol City, I think it was the first misstep that Johannes Hoftorp has made as Norwich manager. I think it was a huge mistake. And to be honest, I think it was quite disrespectful from JHT to do what he did in terms of Sienats. He went into that game with two conundrums. It was who was the striker and who was the goalkeeper. In terms of the goalkeeper situation, he could either start George Long and get either backed from the fans and go and say, okay, well, here's a keeper who's been in awful form, but the club clearly see something in him and they've given him a 3-year deal. Torop knows that he's there to be a second choice goalkeeper and he's backed his keeper, so fair play to him. Or he chucks Archie Mayer in, which would be a gamble, but a justified and a reasonable gamble. So then whatever JHT did in that situation, I think he would have got backed and would have come out of that looking good in any way possible. Whereas with the striker option, there was really only one choice, right? We've been saying all season, it reeks of Sargent in the Premier League and in the Championship under Dean Smith, where we knew we had such a promising striker there who was just stuck out on the right wing. And with Sienats, now's his chance to play as that number 9. And then to see that he was in the team, but not even starting as the number 9, and they'd prefer Emiliano Marcondes to play not only as the striker, but deeper in a false 9 position. I just think it's incredibly disrespectful. We've backed this guy clearly with the transfer fee we've spent on him. So when he gets an opportunity like he's got now with Sargent being injured, he needs to play and we need to back him. And for JHT to not start him as a striker completely baffles me. And I still don't know why he did that. And if I was Sienat, I would feel a bit let down by that. And I'd be wanting to start the next game as a number 9. But I think in terms of the striking scenario as a whole, if we rule out sort of Kenabo here, because it's difficult. He is a senior striker, but he's also not a senior striker at the same time. If you look at the situation in the summer, every Norwich fan would have taken the striking predicament we're in. To get £9.5 million for Adam Eder, to then reinvest that money into Antti Sienats, who's younger than Eder and arguably has more potential in terms of the scouting, in terms of what the scouts have seen and his underlying numbers in the Polish league. Most fans would have taken that. And I think in terms of the fans who are saying, oh, well, we always needed a striker, it is revisionism, because we all said it on this podcast, the money we got for Eder was brilliant. And to replace him with Sienats was great. I think the only sort of shortcoming was that they sent someone like Kenabo out on loan. But I think anyone would have taken 2 sort of clear strikers and then maybe promoting someone from the youth setup. What fans didn't cater for was the fact that Sienats wasn't being used as a second choice striker. He was being used as a false winger, so to speak, and it just hasn't suited him. And yeah, I don't understand it personally, and I think it's been JHT's only shortcoming as Norwich City manager so far.
I completely agree with you about him not being a winger. I think that's pretty kind of clear. It's up for debate as to whether he's a striker. Bless him. But again, he is 20, 21. He's not like a Van Wolfswinkel who already had pedigree and already had like proper experience in European football. We haven't gone out and spent the big bucks on, the finished article. We've spent the big bucks on someone with promise. It is a bit of a FIFA transfer in terms of, oh, good, we got £9 million for Adamida. Let's just spend £9 million on someone else, like transfer in, transfer out. Did we negotiate? Because if we did, what was his figure supposed to be? Like 12 million? Obviously, Cernats himself wasn't the one who warranted the transfer fee, so don't blame him for being really expensive. It's not like his fault. He just, is supposed to be apparently really good. And obviously having that huge price tag is a lot of pressure. Like I mentioned about our dear friend Ricky, that was probably too much for him. And I think, again, this period where there's no Sargent, this is his opportunity as a striker. And it's what we all want to see. And I think what we want to see, apart from obviously goal contributions, we want to see some form of promise, retaining the ball well, being a good dribbler, just looking kind of strong in the air. He just quite isn't there yet. And you mentioned about Schwartau as well. It's reflective of kind of what we all thought at the start of the season, which was Norwich under Torup aren't there yet. So when we already agreed it at the start of the season that, this team wasn't ready yet, when the team actually isn't ready, we're angry about it. But we predicted it, but we knew that was going to happen. I think what the problem is that we actually started playing well. That was our problem, right? We were really good. And Sky and all the neutral pundits, Benji Bloom was saying, oh, this is the new 18-19, we're dark horses. And we've completely, stumbled. And Henry, you made a fantastic point that at the eve of the season, what were we critiquing about Napa and about this team was how thin we looked and about how a lack of cover in striking options has essentially done us. Let's not forget that our dear friend Ashley Barnes will be back from injury soon. But if you remember when Ashley Barnes was playing as a lone striker and not a weird number 10 centre forward last season, he looked half the player. So I don't think he's our striking solution. Who would be a striking solution? Paul Mullin. Let's sign him. Actually, I know what we'll do. We'll disguise the recording of Welcome to Wrexham as the Welcome to Wroxham. We'll lure him into Norfolk, and then we'll just tie him up and put him in the back of a car. And then he has to sit and watch Hernandez make TikToks. And then he will have no choice but to play for Norwich. But yes. In seriousness, apart from Paul Mullin, who we will sign, I think this is unfortunately what we feared about our transfer strategy and not having enough cover up front. We knew that Josh Sargent had knees of glass, or is it his groin now? Is it a different injury to his last injury?
Yes. It is.
Wow. So let me make an outrageous hot take for you. In the summer, we need to sell Sargent. We need to sell him immediately in the summer for probably the first decent fee that we can get. It's just going to keep happening. And if it happens again, his value is going to tank. We're looking at a striker who in the summer, we would probably say, if Ruter went to Brighton for, what was that, 20 or 30 million or something ridiculous, We'd probably say that Sargent is somewhere like 20 to 25 million, with a second long-term injury that's put him out for half a season. That pretty much halves his transfer value. He's probably in around 10 or 15 mil now. And they're, I think, like I said, a second long-term injury, 2 seasons on the trot. I don't think there's going to be many top echelon suitors that will be dying for his signature. Obviously, when he plays, he is unequivocally fantastic, but is he a bit of a poison chalice now? Joshy, love you to bits, but like, I don't know, have some paracetamol or something, or like, we've got the NHS in England, unlike America. Like, it's free. Just, have some Calpol or something. I don't know, like. But
what I will say with Sargent though, and with Sargent's injury record, I think he's got this narrative that he's like, a walking sick note, and I don't think that can be further from the truth. Like he picked up an injury last season, picked up an injury this season, but the fact of the matter is, the last year he's played more games than he's missed. And I think, yes, he's had those injury layoffs. But if you compare him to someone like Jack Wilshere, you're going to get like a good return on Josh Sargent. Whereas someone like Jack Wilshere, who, in his playing days, seemed to play 4, 5, 6 games and then just constantly be injured, was a liability. Whereas I don't think Josh Sargent is that. I don't think Josh Sargent could get himself into the position that he has been this season if he was an injury liability. So I think in terms of that point, that's sort of a narrative that I don't necessarily believe in. I don't think that rings true. I think Sargent, yes, he is that striker who is more physical than other strikers. But I think on the whole, it doesn't make him more injury prone. Yes, this is his second injury, but he should be back by the turn of the new year, hopefully, and then hopefully he sees out the season. So what I will say, if it happens again, then we've got an issue. If it happens again this season, then we've got an issue. But at the minute, like, I think it's probably a bit unfair, people sort of making out that he's this walking sickness patient, because to me, I don't see that. I think he probably plays more than he misses.
Yeah. And you mentioned Wilshere. How's your managerial career going so far, Jackie boy? Played 4, drawn 1, lost 3. Come on, Jack. Come on, do something better.
It's not been good. It's not been good since Wilshere's come in. That's putting it quite well. Yeah, putting it spot on, really. No, it's not gone well since Wilshere's come in. Well, funny, Jack, that Calpol comment reminded me of when you told Mr. Fisher to grow a beard. He follows us on Twitter now. Very kind of him to drop us one. So maybe he's watching. Kellen, if you are, we don't say this all about your teammates. I promise. We're nice people. Please subscribe.
Kellen, if you're watching, look at Freddie's face. You want to grow something like that? That's a proud
I don't think he does. I don't think he does. No, I don't think he wants the Movember look, unfortunately.
I think if Kellen is watching, that says more about the England under-21 setup than we care to imagine, to be honest.
He's showing. Who else is in the England under-21 squad these days? I don't know. He's showing. There you go. He's showing Abu. Look at you missed out on this, Abu. Look at these 3 lads sat in a line. They're all lovely people. No.
Maybe him and Doyle are just going around showing the whole England under-21s team, the MFW pod.
I really hope he is for our sake and maybe some viewing figures, maybe. But no, we can dream. We're all allowed to dream. But anyhow, we'll go off from the long-winded opinions and all the stuff that made sense. And if this team is bolognese or if it's a slice of bread of toast or whatever it is, and we'll all move on from our favourite culinary dish comparison to this Norwich team. We had quick fire hot takes the last few weeks when Jack wasn't here, but now he's back and he can ask them himself. So, yeah. Mr. Wright, what have you got in store this time around?
Right. Well, no, just the usual, unfortunately. I haven't spiced it up or done anything interesting. It's just 5 quick fire hot takes. I will try and partake. I can't remember writing these. I wrote these earlier, but it wasn't even that long ago. First question, usual question. Anti-man of the match against Bristol City.
Can I say all of them?
Yeah.
All right.
I'd say Slimani, just because he clearly wasn't fit.
George Long, because I won't hear otherwise. Most toxic Carrow Road atmosphere.
Oh, God, where do you start? There's been
Norwich
so many.
versus West Brom, was it, under Chris Hughton, where he got that?
Ooh, the clapper.
Yeah, he got the clapper chucked at him.
Actually, I think there's quite an easy one here. Colchester beating us 7-1 and a fan ran on the pitch to confront Brian Gunn. I think that says a lot.
Yeah.
I wonder where that fan is now.
Yeah.
Don't
know. No, I thought of 2. I thought of Blackburn at home last season when we were like, what was it, 2-0 down after 15 minutes? That was dark. There were boos after like 20 minutes or something ridiculous. And the Swansea game where we lost 3-0 against Russell Martin, and the ground emptied after the 60th minute. I don't know if that's toxic or just like indifferent. But okay. Number 3, George Long in goal forever or Ricky Van Wolfswinkel up front forever?
Van Wolfswinkel up front.
Yeah, I'll go with Ricky up front. I reckon he's probably got it in him now, so I'll go with Ricky. Yeah,
that's a clean sweep. Love you, Ricky. Hope you're watching from wherever you are. Oh, this is a fun one. What is the worst Norwich take you've heard over the years? Now, Mr. Canary Call, you must have heard hundreds of terrible takes. Has there been one on Canary Call that's particularly stuck out to you?
I mean, I got a call last week saying JHT should go, and that even when we were doing good, he wasn't up to the standard. So I wouldn't say it's the worst take I've ever had, but yeah, one of the worst takes was I think it was the 14-15 season. Becchio was frozen out of the team, but made the bench for one game. And my brother was adamant that Becchio should have started. And then after the game, he marched himself down to the club shop and got Becchio printed on the back of his shirt. And then that season, we go to Wembley in the playoff final. He's there celebrating in the stands at Wembley Stadium with a Becchio 19 shirt.
Heritage. It's heritage. It's Norwich heritage. No, I will. There's been a few. Abu Kamara Player of the Season was a pretty bad one. That was quite bad. I think Kenny McLean to be sold. Yeah, whoever said that was crazy. No, that was a dreadful take. No, I'll go with that. Whoever said that is they're crazy.
Yeah. I can't think of any others. I can just think of my own terrible takes, which at the time, with context is absolutely fine. 2 of mine that really spring to mind. I thought Marley Watkins would be a perfect Kyle Lafferty replacement.
Well, he scored as many goals as him, so you were right on that.
Yeah, I actually saw live Kyle Lafferty score, I think, 3 out of his 5 Norwich goals. Which, a goal machine, really. What was the other one? Oh, I thought in the 21-22 season, when we'd just gone up the second time, Hugo should have started against Liverpool. But I think that was the pre-season where he was really good. But that didn't work out.
I went on BBC Radio Norfolk earlier on in the season and was fully aboard the Amankwa Force and hype train. I was like, yeah, we found our Arteta replacement, and then ever since he's just dropped stinkers. So yeah, that's not my finest moment either.
Oh, Amankwa. Oh. Finally, I think that's Which Norwich player should have got an England call up? And you can't say Grant Holt.
Well, who else is there even to say?
No,
there's barely anyone. No one else was that good.
Yeah, that's why it's a fun question, Freddie.
I can't say Ruddy because he got one.
Yes.
Oh, no idea. Have we signed some obscure England loanee who's ended up all right? I think through a pure footballing loophole, I'll go with Marcus Edwards.
Oh, boring, but true.
In terms of what they did for Norwich, I'd probably go with Johnny Howson.
Oh, that is a shout.
Yeah, but we don't like him anymore.
I think people who don't like him anymore should just grow up, to be honest. Like, look at what he did for Norwich. Like, absolute baller when he was here. Just grow up.
Well, I guess we got some growing up to do, Jack.
and with the shenanigans for Middlesbrough last season, can you blame him? Like, you'd do the same.
No, I don't know.
Oh God!
Oh, dear.
Someone who should have played for England before they signed for Norwich and then they ruined their career. Gary Hooper, when he was in his prime at Celtic, probably should have got an England call up. Probably should have done over someone like Peter Crouch or Jermaine Defoe.
No, that's so disrespectful. That is so disrespectful to Crouch. That is unbelievably disrespectful. He scored over 100 Premier League goals, and he almost had a goal every other game for England. He had a better goal-to-game ratio than Alan Shearer for England. Are you kidding? Oh, that's horrible. That is so harsh. That is unbelievably harsh on Peter Crouch.
Freddie, what you have to remember, though, in the late Capello, early Hodgson era, he was just giving anyone England call-ups like Jay Bothroyd.
Oh, he's done it again. He's done it again.
I apologise. But Jay Bothroyd, how did he get an England call-up? That is baffling.
Exactly. Oh, well, there goes all of our money. There goes our budget. I haven't even given my answer yet. Oh, no, Hooper. Or I had a good one. I can't remember. David Fox should have got an England call-up. Vastly underrated. But yeah, that's it. That's it for quickfire hot takes, I'm afraid.
No, that's a shame. Well, I would say we'll have some next week, but it's an international break. So you all know what that means if you're regular viewers. There's going to be a quiz, and it's going to be good fun. But we'll leave it at that. We won't spoil anything for anyone who has sat through or listened through to 63 minutes of pure waffle, really, but it's fun. It's fun waffle, and it is very good. Where else are you going to hear that your favourite football team are either a spaghetti bolognese or they're a slice of... I can't even say it with a straight face.
A nice bit of Lurpak on the top, yeah. If you've got Lurpak in the fridge.
Other butters are available.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kerrygold and what's it? Batoli? Is that the olive oil one? I think or whatever.
Or the Lidl's own like Dan pack, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, the Dan pack. That's lovely.
I was going to say, we are looking for a sponsor. So if you would like to sponsor the MyFootballWriter podcast, please do get in touch. Lurpak or Jan Pack or whatever Butter wants to sponsor us.
Yeah. Yes, please. Drop us an email. I don't know. Email Gary Gowers. He'll let you know. He'll get in touch with you shortly if you wish. But anyhow, there's your lot. Norwich are a piece of toast rather than an Italian staple dish for what it's worth. Hopefully they'll have some key elements back, like the mince, like the sauce, like the pasta, maybe the basil as well, whatever you want on bolognese, maybe even your Parmesan cheese, maybe that they need back. But right now, they're just a bit of bread with some spread on it. But hey ho, there's your lot. Thank you all for either watching or listening to the 21st installment of the MyFootballWriter podcast. I've been Freddie Humphrey Wakefield. They have been the excellent Henry Miller, the spaghetti bolognese enthusiast, and Jack Wright, the toast enthusiast. Thank you all very much. I will see you again probably too soon for your liking, but we all have good fun. Bye-bye.